In this video, we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And this morning, the most important updates are coming from China, where the SEO summit is taking place on the territory of the city by the name of Tianjin. Very important summit. Xi Jinping on the SEO summit, forging new era of international relations. The SEO has become an important force for building new international relations and the shared future for humanity, Xi Jinping said at the summit reception. Since its creation, the organization has followed the Shanghai spirit, boosting unity, trust, and cooperation, and taking an active role in the global and regional affairs. She expressed confidence that the Tianjin summit would give fresh momentum to the SEO's sustainable development. So very important meeting, and here we can see the leader of China, here we can see the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, the prime minister of India, and many other leaders from different countries came to China with the purpose to talk and to discuss the future of this alliance, the future of this part of the world, not of the European countries, not of the United States of America, but of these countries. Lots of statements were made, lots of very interesting pictures were made, and the most important, lots of very interesting decisions were made as well, especially the creation of a common bank of development, which is very important. And it seems that this is another step to the dollar, the economies of these countries that are the part of this SEO organization. Let's wait and see obviously what is going to be next, but obviously this is a very strong summit and very strong meeting. Now let's return back to Ukraine and let's discuss the situation here. Zelensky during the previous 12 hours made lots of very interesting statements, especially this one. New deep strikes planned, forces and means are prepared. So Zelensky stated during the previous 12 hours that Ukraine is ready to attack deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation with the ballistic and probably cruise missiles that were created on the territory of Ukraine with the help of the Western countries. Obviously, this is not going to bring us closer to the peace, but obviously this is going to be another layer of escalation of the conflict between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. So let's go and let's start with the southern directions. During the previous 12 hours, very interesting video was published by Ukrainian forces from the southern part of Crimea. Here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking different military facilities on the territory of the Crimea with drones that most likely were launched or sent from the Black Sea. So this is another reason why the Russians need to intensify their, let's say, technologies and their Navy drone productions with the purpose to secure the Crimea from the west and from the southwest. Because if Ukrainians continue doing the same, obviously in months, days, weeks, they will be able to improve their drones technologies, and they will be able to deal significant damage to Russian military facilities on the territory of Crimea. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded. Neutral mappers reported that during the previous 12 hours, the Russians managed to improve their positions on their way towards the settlement of Olgovska. Additional changes, additional tree lines were taken under control. Nothing special, but this is another proof that the Russians continue their eastern Zaporozhye offensive with the purpose to get as close as possible or even to cut physically the road AR-85. The Russians are still very far from this road, but they have already passed 50% of the entire way. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the western Donetsk direction, where the Ukrainians continue their counterattacks. During the previous 24 hours, additional videos were recorded. For example, in this video that was published by Ukrainian forces from the settlement of Zelyony Gai, we can see how Ukrainians of 214th Separate Assault Battalion were counterattacking Russians in this area, how Ukrainians were moving from one building to another. So this video confirms that Ukrainians have strong control over the settlement and that Ukrainians managed to almost completely clear the settlement from Russian soldiers. Based on this video, we haven't adjusted anything. This is just another proof that Ukrainians once again have very strong control over the territory and that Ukrainians continue their counter-offensive operation. A bit further to the east, we have another video from the settlement of Dachna, which is located on the territory of the Dnipro region, and the settlement of Dachna is the first settlement that was taken by the Russians on the territory of the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, and as you can see, the village most likely was retaken by the armed forces of Ukraine. In this video, we can see Ukrainian soldiers that raised their flag in the most southeastern part of the settlement. Based on this video, we have adjusted the territory of the settlement of Udachne in Ukraine's favor. So, as you can see, the Ukrainians launched their major counter-offensive operation in the West Donetsk region, most likely with the purpose to restore control over as many as possible territories and to force the Russians to fall back. So we see a strong presence of the Ukrainians, and they continue improving their positions. The main purpose of this Ukraine activity is to force the Russians to stop their Zaporozhye offensive operation and to return back some forces in the western Donetsk direction with the purpose to stabilize the situation. Now we are moving to the Pokrovsk direction. During the previous 24 hours, very interesting changes on the ground were recorded. According to several pro-Russian resources, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians launched another offensive operation in the Pokrovsk direction, and it seems that, according to information we have, that the defense of the armed forces of Ukraine at the territory of the city, at least in the southwestern and in the southern parts, has collapsed completely. Just yesterday, several pro-Ukraine resources made very interesting statements. Those sources who has connections on the ground, we're talking about volunteers who brings food, weapons, probably drones to the soldiers on the ground. And one of these volunteers made a very interesting article in his official Telegram channel saying that in coming days the Russians were planning to begin another major offensive operation, very strong offensive operation, which is going to be most likely the strongest offensive since the beginning of the battle of the city of Pokrovsk itself. So this information was published yesterday on the 31st of August of 2025, and today we start receiving updates from the city of Pokrovsk. And furthermore, when talking about the city of Pokrovsk, we can see the dynamic. For example, this is the first article that was published today by pro-Russian resource. In this article, we see that the Russians managed to cut the M30 road in this area, and the Russians managed to improve their positions in this most southern part of the Pokrovsk citadel. Later, we got an additional update, and according to probably few hours later after the first article was published by the source, the next article told us that the Russians improved their positions already in the central part of the city and that the Russians answered this market. So this is a central market where Ukrainians used to sell and buy cars, or the civilians of the city of Pokrovsk. And right before we started making this video, we got additional progress on the ground, and according to the latest update, the Russians have almost got the most central part and have almost reached the railway station that located in the most central part of the city. So once again, the Russians during the previous day first improved their positions in the citadel, then the Russians managed to cut M30 road, then the Russians secured the territory of market, and right before we start making this video, the Russians continued advancing further in the direction of the central part of the city. And as we can see, this is obviously very big dynamic, and obviously if this information is correct, we can confirm, and we are emphasizing that the defense of the city of Pokrovsk, at least from its southwestern part, collapsed completely. If Russians are able to continue offensive and if Ukrainians are not able to stabilize the situation, this can lead to complete collapse of the situation in the area of Mirnograd. Furthermore, several pro-Ukrainian sources reported that during the previous 24 hours, the Russians were trying to attack the settlement from the east and from the northeast. Several videos were published, but those videos haven't been geolocated yet. We believe that during the day we're going to receive additional geolocation operations, we will understand how exactly the Russians were trying to attack. Anyway, this is very important because if you remember, several days ago we were talking also about that the Russians were about to finish their strategical regrouping and were about to launch their major assault and offensive operations. As for the area of breakthrough, during the previous 24 hours, nothing special was recorded. Lots of explosions. The Russians are bombing with FABs and artillery the edge positions of the armored forces of Ukraine, trying not to allow them to attack Russian forces, just trying to pin them down. So this is very important because the Ukrainians were trying to cut Russian positions in the area of Kucherov Yar and to take the Russians in Cauldron, but most likely Ukrainian planes, as for now, were failed. Now we are moving to the Liman direction. During the previous 24 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded. According to neutral mappers, the Russians improved their positions on the way from the settlement of Kolodezi to the settlement of Zarechne. And the sources are saying that the situation is very difficult already, and it seems that this part of the front line is going to collapse also very soon. At the same time, the Ukrainians continue their counterattacks in the area of Redkadub, and today we got additional changes on the ground that were recorded. In this video, we can see how Russians were attacking Ukrainians on the territory of the settlement with FPV drones. Here we can see a group of Ukrainian stormtroopers in a number of 4 soldiers that were moving on the territory of Redkadub, and then they were attacked by the Russians. So we came to the conclusion that either the settlement of Redkadub is in the gray zone or under complete Ukraine control. So Ukrainians continue counterattacks, and the main purpose of these counterattacks is to stop Russian advancement in the direction of the city of Liman. And now we are coming to the city of Kupiansk. There were 2 videos, important videos published from this area. So this is the first one, and in this video we can see how a Russian drone was flying about the most northwestern part of the city towards this construction. And when the drone approached this construction, we can see the Russian flag that was raised on this facility, on this construction. So this flag obviously was established by a drone, but this video just confirms that the Russians have most likely some superiority in the air. Furthermore, Ukrainian forces counterattacked or continued their counteroffensive operation in the area of the settlement by the name of Mirova. This video today was published by the Russian resources. Here we can see how Ukrainians took under control several buildings in this area and how Russians were attacking these buildings with FPV drones. So this episode was geolocated exactly in this point, and we came to the conclusion that Ukrainians most likely as a result of counteroffensive managed to improve their positions. I would like to remind you that according to the General Staff of the Armored Forces of the Russian Federation, according to several pro-Ukraine resources, the Russians blocked the city of Kupiansk from the west, and most likely now Ukrainians are trying to counterattack in the western part of the city of Kupiansk with the purpose to restore control over these territories, and the most important, to restore communication and logistics with the city of Kupiansk itself. So we're going to see more attacks from Ukrainian side, but one thing we know for sure, that to carry out these counterattacks, the Ukrainians were forced most likely to redeploy additional forces in the direction of the city of Kupiansk, which means that currently somewhere the Ukrainians are very weak, and most likely the Russians will try to attack in this direction in coming days or maybe even hours. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes on my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.